Hi everyone. So, you thought a little snow was going to keep us from having class? Not in the age of digital technology. I just want to take a couple minutes to cover a few things I would have talked about in class. I'm sorry we weren't able to do it there. I've got my computer and some notes over here on the side, so I'm going to be looking over there a lot. Don't be distracted. We're going to talk about conflict because you've got a paper coming up. This is an important subject for us. What I would have done in class is written conflict on the board and just asked you for your perceptions and responses to what does conflict mean. I expect we would have found that most of you interpreted it as a negative thing, and we would have equated conflict with fighting, that sort of thing. I'd like to try and expand that a little bit. Conflict doesn't have to be that. Anytime there's these conflicting ideas, there's an opportunity there for something. Maybe there's an opportunity for discovery of something different. We each have an idea of the way things should be, and maybe in fact there's another idea neither of us have thought of that's a better idea than either idea we had alone, and we come up with a better idea together. Conflict always has that potential for creating something new, so conflict can be conceived as a very positive thing. Change is almost always going to be a result of conflict, or vice versa. Conflict will almost always result in change. And change is oftentimes, I'd say more often than not, a good thing. So we can begin to learn to embrace conflict as a good thing. That kind of takes some of the emotion out of it, say, hey, there's something going on here. Let's get this thing worked out. Maybe we'll end up in a better place than we thought we could have been to begin with. So that's what we would have talked about for quite some time. Let's talk about the definition of conflict. Let me read it as it is in the book from Hocker and Woolmert. An expressed struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce rewards, and interference from the other parties in achieving their goals. What I want you to see that's missing there, it's not two people that don't like each other. It's not two people that are mad at each other. It doesn't necessarily have any of that. It's just that two people or more have goals of some sort, and for some reason, because of their goals, they're interdependent, which means in order for me to achieve my goals, you've got to be involved. And because of differing goals, it seems like we can't each achieve our goals, so somebody's going to have to sacrifice something. And then you have conflict when two things appear to be incompatible. The appear to be is an important part of that because maybe they aren't. We need to explore that through conflict resolution. Here's the first thing to consider in conflict resolution. When two people are conflicted over something, rather than seeing each other as the problem, which is a very common thing, especially in those escalating conflicts that end up someplace that you don't want to be, instead of seeing each other as the problem, understand that you have these incompatible goals, and the problem is a thing unto itself, these incompatible goals. You two are individuals who have the option of connecting as a team and trying to address the problem. Even though the problem is goals within you individually, each other are not necessarily the problem. You just need to work together and say, we've got this thing, let's figure out how we're going to do this, and maybe something positive comes out of it. Now in the book, it talks about many different styles of conflict, and I'm not going to rehash all those. It's a pretty good list of a lot of different ways of doing that. But if you look at the picture and the graph that I have on Blackboard, where you clicked on the link to get to this video, you'll see a different way of looking at these different styles of conflict. The chart shows on the bottom one person in the conflict, they're concerned for the other. And on the other side, it shows their concern for self. And depending on where you fall in your concern for the other and your concern for self determines what kind of style you may use to resolve the conflict. If you care a lot for yourself, for instance, but don't care very much about the other person, or at least their goals, then you end up in a competitive situation where you want to win and you want them to lose. You want to get your way and you want them to not get their way. And that can be an appropriate way to handle conflict. If you're in conflict with your kids over something, sometimes you just get to win. And it needs to be that way. So it's not that any of these ways that are listed there are necessarily wrong, they're just different approaches. Each one has its place. In the middle, you have compromise, where I'm concerned about my own goals, I'm concerned about your goals as well, but I'm not highly committed to them exactly the way they are, so we end up at a compromise. It's a natural tendency to think of compromise as the highest possible way to achieve these things, and it's not. In compromise, everybody loses something. They also win something, but they also lose something. Ask them a month later what they won and what they lost, and they'll probably remember what they lost more than what they won. So compromise is good, but it's not necessarily where you want to try and achieve. The ultimate is up in the top right corner, collaboration. That's where I care a lot about your goals, I care a lot about my own goals, and it's a lot more work, but let's see if we can come up with some creative new way of looking at this that gets both of our goals met. This is used a lot in mediation, where you take people and they've got positions, I want this, and the other person says, I want that. And you start breaking it down and say, well, why do you want that? And you find out, instead of what their actual specific goals or demands or positions are, you find out what their interests are. Why do you have that position? Why do you want that thing? And then you can maybe think of a way to say, well, we can get you those interests. Those interests can be met without necessarily having you take that position. So this is an approach that gets you to that point of collaboration where you can both have a win-win. But you have to break it down to your interests. What do you really want? Never mind your position or the other person's position. Go past that. Why is that your position? What is it you're actually trying to achieve here that you think that position or that goal will get you? And then maybe you can start seeing other ways to achieve that rather than just stubbornly sticking to a particular goal or a position.